Is that okay with you, Krista, if we go ahead and start?
Yeah, I'll just
Yeah.
start a Google Doc and
Right.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, but Elizabeth Blair just wrote.
yes.
Oh, did she just, yeah, Betsy?
Yeah,
She
Betsy, and she said, could you please tell me the date of the email that has the original agenda so I can find the Zoom link, please?
Oh.
And I'm just trying to figure out why my computer won't let me. Oh wait, no, I want to come over here.
September 23rd for Betsy.
Okay, you want me to send that to her for you?
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Thank you.
There, now I just saw her thing. Oh, I can do it.
Okay.
Or I could have just sent her the link. Maybe that would have been nicer, huh? Plus my
I mean,
brain
it's
is
better to
not
do what
thinking.
she asked.
I just
Yeah.
did what she asked. And she can be reassured when she gets here that we haven't done anything yet because for some reason it won't upload to my Google Doc. I don't know why.
Krista, if it helps, if you have the notes from 828, the format didn't change. It's basically just tracking the actions and decisions is what we'd all decided, I think.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So you could, if it comes down to it, you could just do the different lines and then track that, I think. So.
Sounds good.
I think we're getting there. I probably could have emailed it to you in a shorter time frame. But
Good evening, Betsy.
Hi, it took me a long time to find the email from the 13th to find the link for the Zoom.
That's all right.
welcome.
Is there some way to make a Zoom link be in a location that I could access? Or do I just have to remember the date that it came in?
You know, Betsy, I was looking for it too. And when I went to the town website and saw that our meeting was
Okay, so it's there.
posted and it's at the bottom of the agenda. Yeah.
Well, I know it's at the bottom of the agenda, but all the copies of the agenda that were on my computer were all in reference to it. I mean, just mobs and mobs of them, but they don't have the link. They don't have the agendas. It doesn't have the link that
Yeah,
you can
the one
click.
on the town site did.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And if you use Front Porch Forum, when I did post it, I don't know if this is the right way to do it or not, but I posted it as an announcement and an event so that it went onto the event calendar on Front Porch Forum. So I think if we do that,
Okay.
you could also look at the calendar there, and the location for that would have it. But I'm not an expert with Front Porch Forum, so.
Okay, but then to get to the calendar, you click at the bottom of the Front Porch Forum?
I think so, but like I said, I'm not an expert either.
Okay,
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So something we can work on, I think. Yeah. So I think we were ready then to get started. We know that Darla wasn't going to be making it today, and that Brian was possibly going to be out because he was not feeling well. So thank you everyone for joining. I'm kind of our host, MC, whatever title we want to use for it for this evening. And then Krista already volunteered to take notes and to take over this role for the next meeting. So thank you for that. We've got the first part of just calling to order. So I guess we could call to order technically at 7:11 or 7:10, whichever you want to say when I started talking. And our first order of agenda, when you're doing the notes, it looks like I left Holy Hall listed as our call to order. So if you could correct that, please, in the notes, since we ended up having to go to remote only. But we wanted to keep on here as the first part to introduce ourselves as the committee members. So I'll start. I'm Trevor Wilson, live here in Bristol, obviously, and I'm glad to be a part of this committee. And I'll let others kind of jump in and introduce themselves.
Okay, I will go. My name is Aina Kaluna, resident of Bristol, Are we doing the, and yeah, I pass it to Krista.
Hi, everyone. My name is Krista Siringo. I use she, her pronouns, and I am happy to be here. Betsy, you want to go ahead?
Okay, I am Betsy Blair and I live in Bristol too. And Tabitha, have you gone? I can see your picture.
I have not gone. Tabitha Moore, I'm a consultant for the town of Bristol. My pronouns are she and they. And it's good to see you all again. And who's left? Jim, did you go?
Nope,
All right.
just an observer.
And Porter, I think that puts you last.
Yep, like Jim, I'm a community member. Live in Bristol, happy to be here.
Thank you very much. And I guess I could have, put us onto the icebreaker at the same time as that. So we get to go through that as well. So I know Brian had an interesting icebreaker last time. I tried to come up with something that kind of related to our idea of, the values and things that we're trying to discuss in the committee. Porter and I kind of chatted a little bit by email though, and we did want to try and keep the responses to a lesser amount of time. Last time we did spend a good amount of time on the icebreaker part. So if we could keep them to 2 minutes or less, we're not gonna, I don't think anybody's gonna be, really trying to watch that, like a hawk or anything, but just to kind of respect our time. So I came up with just what is one value or aspect of Vermont which drew you either to Vermont or has kept you living here. And part of that came from my being new to the state when I was thinking about it. So, my icebreaker, I'll go ahead and start that as well. And for me, what drew me here are a lot of the values that I think a lot of other community members have already expressed, but it's things like the value of, small town environment, community where people want to work together to, to keep it vibrant and to always work towards something better. Those are probably two of the biggest things that drew me to Vermont and then to Bristol specifically. And I'll pass it on from there.
Okay, I will go next. I think that I just find Vermont a safe place to raise my children. So that's why I stay here.
I can go next. Sorry, I couldn't find my little Zoom window disappeared for a minute. I was drawn here because of the natural beauty.
Would you like to share anything, Betsy? I mean, I think the
Okay,
icebreakers can be,
I can't see many of the pictures, so I don't really have a sense of,
oh, that's okay.
when to go. Okay, I moved to Vermont to be near a relative, and I was looking for a small town, and when I came and spent a couple of days just walking around Bristol, people would come up to me on the sidewalk and introduce themselves and ask me why I was here. And I told them that I was looking for a place, and they would just wax poetic about how much they loved Bristol. And then after another paragraph, they would say, and what is your volunteer work? And I could see that this is a place where people really give back to their community. And I just thought that was the perfect place to be. And I still do. Okay, so then Tabitha goes after me?
Sure.
Okay, here I am. So I'm here because I have 6 generations in Vermont, and in
Wow.
1996, I said I was never coming back, never having kids, never getting married. And so naturally, I packed up my then 2 kids and husband and moved home, and because there's nothing like the nature here. And my grandfather was born in 1914 in the house he died in 2012. So there's something about coming home and reclaiming your roots, especially as a brown Vermonter. And Jim.
I'll pass on this one, thank you.
I moved here to go to college, and I liked the community feel and the small friendliness of it. I had never had that growing up, like a place where people knew each other, and I really like that, and that's why I stay, is community and connections.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for what you shared. I do kind of want to comment here, and others can disagree with me if you feel differently, but I do like the idea that maybe the icebreaker is considered something optional for people to, I appreciate everyone's comments because I like learning about the other members of the committee since I don't know most of you outside of the committee yet. But it is probably good and important to know that, I have volunteered in places where icebreakers were very mandatory, and it's not very conducive to all types of people to do that. And so if anyone ever feels that they don't want to participate in it, just like you did, Jim, saying that you want to pass, that's completely welcome, I think. So then on to agenda item 2, committee member track to decisions and actions. We already have Krista for that, so we're ahead of the game on that. So item number
Krista,
3.
did you get the email? I sent the
I
doc
did.
right now. so
Yep, thank
finally.
you so much. Got it.
Okay. good.
So on to item number 3 is just a public comment period. If there are any public comments before we get into other items.
I wanna acknowledge this September 15 to October 15 is Hispanic Heritage Month. So I just wanna bring into awareness, and maybe it could be, we could add it like how we are going to celebrate the people and heritage in our town when we are talking about diversity and equity and inclusion.
Annika, can you tell me the dates again? So it started September 15th through October 15th. Was that it?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's the national recognized sign by the different presidents. So it's not something that the Latino people invented. It's something that is recognized by the presidents.
Is this a time to mention Indigenous Peoples' Day? There's going to be a pretty good celebration of that in Middlebury. And that would be Monday, the 14th, I think, of October.
I think this is a perfect time for that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to look for that. I didn't know there was going to be that kind of a celebration in Middlebury.
Well, there's a church in Middlebury that has their own racial justice committee and has done research in the church archives for racial attitudes through the last couple hundred years and stuff like that. And they are very active with Indigenous Peoples' Day and other Indigenous activities. And they've got, I think, some important speakers coming in. I can, as that information solidifies, I can generate it, or anybody who is interested, they on their website, in the church's website, this is St. Stephen's Episcopal Church, they have, that committee has its own bunch of pages, and they have just a lot of links to videos and speeches, the Martin Luther King speeches and just that kind of stuff, and about either Indigenous or Black issues. And so I would have handed these out to you if we'd met in person, and I can do that again, at the next meeting that is in person and that I am able to attend.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question, Inika? So you had mentioned the dates for Latino Heritage Month, but are you aware of any events happening locally or any things that are occurring in the Bristol area to honor our Latino neighbors?
Not on the top of my mind, but if I heard of something, I will share them with this group.
I wonder if the very least that we could maybe just post that it is that on Front Porch Forum, because
I think that'd be wonderful.
there
Yeah.
might be people who don't know, and if there aren't things happening locally, maybe we can point people to places if we know of things that are happening in Burlington or Middlebury or elsewhere.
Yeah, I wonder if even a simple acknowledgement, like, because we have a big number of Hispanic people in Vermont and in Addison and in town too, that is never part of the community. So at least an acknowledgement saying that we respect the roots of and the contribution of the Hispanic people in the economy and the social tissue of Vermont and our town or our county. I think that will be at least the first drop of possibilities to bring recognition and awareness.
So
I'd like to I think that they said that one of the speakers at that Indigenous Peoples Day was going to be that, I can't think of her name, the Latino, well, she's from the Dominican Republic originally, who's written many books, and she's the
Julia Alvarez.
yes, I think she may be a speaker at that event. She goes to that church sometimes. So anyway, it may cover a lot. It might cover all of our target groups, a lot of our target groups.
So I just want to back up to this idea of, a simple acknowledgement of our neighbors here in Addison County for National Hispanic or Latino. Is it Latino Heritage Month, Ainuka?
It's Hispanic, and there is another conversation about Latinx, Hispanic, Afro-Latinx. So because depend of who colonized us or who is the the perspective. So how do we identify ourselves? But officially it's Hispanic Heritage Month. So maybe we could use that identification.
So I don't know if it's like the town of Bristol or if we just want to, Bristol's Equity Committee wants to extend a big welcome to our Hispanic neighbors. We want to honor them during Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th to October 15th, and all throughout the year. The Equity Committee respects the roots and contributions of Hispanic people in our community and to the economy in Bristol and Addison County.
Yeah, I could say like honor the contributions of all the Hispanic, Latinx, and Afro-Latinx people. I think that will be more inclusive. And oh, look at this. Thank you, Tabitha.
Hispanic, Latinx.
Afro-Latinx.
Yeah. Well, and be careful because Latinx is a US term
Yeah.
that has been put upon people. My friend is a Dominican lexicologist, and when this first came out, she hit the roof because she's like, X is not the natural progression of our language. That's white people colonizing the colonizer.
Hispanic,
Mhm.
Hispanic neither, because Hispanic is a term only used in the United States, because when we are outside the country, we don't call ourselves Hispanic. We call ourselves Colombians, Puerto Ricans, blah, blah, blah. So there is another colonizing idea of, so it's so
It's
long.
it's a really good question though. I mean, so how do we extend do we want to acknowledge them, appreciate them, welcome them as part of us here in Bristol during this month?
Yes, we want to honor our community members and welcome those, with these identities. Middlebury College did a couple of events too. I don't know if they have anything else coming up, but it might be good to reach out for that to them for language. And I am right now looking up the Vermont Department of Corrections has a monthly equity newsletter that
Mm.
they put out. So I'm looking to see the language and I'll copy and paste it for you if that's helpful.
I have a thought about this sort of thing, and I wonder if we might want to have a regular action item where we, and maybe it's the person who's taking notes. I'm just in a volunteering mood tonight, I guess. I don't know. Or maybe it's somebody else, but we rotate just, you know, posting these sorts of things that we hear about so that we're regularly letting our community members know what's going on. Or it could just be someone might just say it more informally, like Porter's writing some stuff down and maybe it's her this time. But if we want to be more consistent as we share with each other about different things coming up, we could make it a practice to take turns posting those things when they come up.
I'd agree with that, Chris. I think that's a good idea. Starts to get the Bristol Equity Committee, that we're here also out there
Yeah.
more,
Yeah.
and that we're trying to reach lots of different communities. As long as we try to remember that's the first step too, because I know we talked before about how things like Front Porch Forum and the Farmer Market and Harvest Fest are wonderful ways to reach people, but not necessarily the ways to reach the communities that we're trying to get to. So I think having it as kind of an action item is probably a good way to help us remember to look for ways to reach beyond that too, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think a question is, do we want it to be a very simple statement? Or do we want to include some education in it, kind of like these suggestions that Tabitha's sharing from, Department of Corrections, where they're, giving a little background. I mean, it could be as simple as saying during National Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th to October 15th, the Equity Committee wants to honor and welcome our neighbors who, share that identity. So then we're not parsing the language. We're simply saying, hey, this is a thing that's happening and hello, we see you and care about you, but without giving background or education. Or we could do something a little bit more in depth, or one or the other now and, pursue it later.
I personally would like education, but that's me. I like when I see posts like what we're talking about, and then they go into something more and give that additional, deep dive option. I think there's a lot of things out there that get posted and that we probably all see on our, day to day, where somebody's saying they're recognizing something, but you don't know any more than that. It's a statement, but how much does that statement mean necessarily? I mean, we see it a lot with corporations, right? Corporations are loving to do this at this point. So how do we make it so that we're showing that we are doing a little more? I think that education idea is part of that. And maybe we don't have something educational every time, but when we can.
Yeah.
Tabitha just put in the notes different important days to keep in mind that. And I think that could be a good practice to bring that information to the public, because it is sometimes people don't know, often people don't know.
Will we be able to get the chat notes after? We should be able to.
I was wondering the same thing.
I'm sure we can get it, or maybe I can just copy it right now.
Yeah, I don't know how to get it. I've actually had programs that I've Zoom recorded for my work, and I don't think it doesn't come like a transcript or anything. You would have to still cut and paste it. So I don't know if it's any more seamless to cut and paste now versus cut and paste from a recording.
Yep.
Well,
I think.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to say that I'm going to just copy all of the goodies that are here right now, and I would be happy to post something. but I'd love it if someone could look at it before I post it, just to make sure it reflects what we want to say, especially the Hispanic, Latinx, Latino piece that I want to make sure resonates and feels right to folks. Would you, Ineke, would you be willing to take a peek if I send something to you? Great. Okay, so I'm going to copy some of this.
I also emailed the stuff from the Department of Corrections to you for the
Oh,
group, so you have that.
great.
Thank
But the
you.
other things, the links, yeah, you can. But the way the Department of Corrections does it is every month. So they have an equity committee, and they decide who is on the committee is going to post for the following month in the
Yep.
newsletter about all of the events. And so they have like this running list of activities that are happening. Then they may
Mhm.
tweak some of the language and then find the local events or organizations or, you know, kind of resources for folks who belong to that community or who are, like, again, offering opportunities for folks to celebrate. And they do that every month.
Do we want to subscribe to that? It's fascinating to me that we might be using the Department of Corrections as a source for our social justice resources, but hey, no point reinventing the wheel. And if they're already doing it, that's cool.
I think I see
and
them next week and I'll ask them. Mhm.
and do we have an opportunity to even like learn from other equity committees like them,
Right.
to learn
Yeah.
more about what we can do and what they're doing?
Yeah. And what it could look like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You sure you don't want to be on the committee, Tabitha?
Do you know how many committees I would be on? if that it's like emails. All of my clients are like, we should just get you an alias email. And I'm like, please don't.
Thank you. So I have a logistics question. So is this now like an action or a new bit? Like, how do I capture that we're going to do this thing?
I
in our
think
notes?
if you guys want to say it's an action, say we're going to have a committee member post on, acknowledging that this month, honoring our neighbors who share that identity, and perhaps putting out some educational materials in that, and that the committee is going to try to do this on a regular basis and develop a sort of pipeline for that type of information to share with the community. I think that sounds like an action.
And I think that kind of moved us right in from the kind of the public comment and addition of items to the agenda kind of merged together with that kind of conversation. So if you're trying to figure out where to put it in.
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is it like addition of items to agenda then, or this
I think
template
so,
doesn't
but
have? Okay,
yeah, I don't know that it has to be that strict on
Gotcha.
where things
Well,
necessarily
and I
happen.
also think it could also lump under the new business item of information swap, which technically we're not at yet in order,
Yeah.
but that's what was happening.
Oh, I see.
Kind of
I
that thing
see.
that Betsy had suggested that we do that we're doing, so
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
I
awesome.
think it could come up there, it's fine. You
Okay.
can park it wherever is necessary,
Okay.
seems appropriate.
So with that kind of idea, do we have any more just general public comments or addition of items to the agenda that we want to add on before we go on to the other items?
I have one, I don't know whether it's an addition to the agenda or whether you want it as a public comment. But it has to do with one of my concerns, about, using acronyms, and I have some expansive ideas on that. I don't know when you want to hear that.
I don't know if there's a specific time we would need to add that in, unless right now.
Okay, well, let's see. So if I can find. Okay, so this is I start with a little quiz for you just to raise your consciousness. Now, is there anybody here at the group that has lived in the Washington, D.C. suburbs? No, good. All right, so I want you to imagine that you have just moved there temporarily to Silver Spring, Maryland, and you have a concern about local air pollution. So which of the following list might help you with that? COG, HOC, HRC, or MCPPC? Who wants to pick one of those?
I have no idea, Betsy.
Okay, well, if you had seen COG with parenthesis saying Council of Governments, you would be right. If you had picked HOC, which is Housing Opportunities Committee, you would be wrong. Human Rights Commission also would be wrong. And Montgomery County Park and Planning Commission would at least know where to send you. But if you had a phone book, how would you go about looking up the phone number of these if you only had their initials? Okay, so as I reflect on the use of acronyms, I realize that that is a subset of in-group jargon. Now, if I write a letter to a theologian, I am going to put in a few words that are big that the general public doesn't know, so that this other theologian will know that actually I've done some study in that area. And I think we tend to do that with anytime you're reaching out professionally to somebody in a type of outfit that has the language. But when you use the acronyms, or when the town government uses the acronyms, or when the school system uses the acronyms, it is always going to be a foreign language to newcomers. It is not welcoming to newcomers, or to people who have finally got the kids out of the nest, so they're deciding that they will start going to the town meetings or something like that. It doesn't draw people in if you don't say what these things mean. And I don't know, when I first was hearing BPD, it had to do with getting in touch with people about road widening, and they were talking about bikes and bike paths and all that kind of stuff. So I figured the B had something to do with bikes. I mean, if you don't know it, then you can't figure it out. And the Bristol Elementary School, that one threw me for a long time, just seeing it as letters. I had no idea what they're talking about. So I would suggest that not only are we careful in whatever we do, anytime you're going to have a piece of paper that has an bunch of initials on it, that you put in parentheses what they mean, so that not just everybody on our committee, but let's say people 20 years from now who are looking through the minutes of our committee will know what we're talking about. And if we can encourage the town departments to also just take that on as a discipline, and you'd say, well, gee, that's a nuisance, but here we've got people saying she, her, hers, she, they. Okay, so that's a direction that we're moving society in. And it's, in a way, okay, it's a nuisance, it's an extra thing to do. This is a nuisance, it's an extra thing to do, but it helps to draw new people into being included.
Betsy, yeah, Krista's hand is up.
Yeah, I was just thinking, thank you, Betsy, for that. I think it's important for us, but also for the town to think about the ways we share information so that all folks can understand the material and not feel excluded. And I wondered if I couldn't remember if any of the work that you did, Tabitha, was in looking at some of our documents and in thinking about how to recommend more inclusive language. And you're nodding your head. Yes, awesome. It's probably in some of the stuff that Porter gave us. So, so I think that's maybe something we want to remind or, reacquaint the select board with, that as they have new documents coming up, we're suggesting they look at those. Sorry, my internet's unstable, so I just turned my camera off. But anyway, I think it's important and it sounds like it's been captured. So we need to figure out how to encourage accountability around that.
That actually kind of leads to a question that I've had, and I guess I haven't really thought about saying before, which is how, when things like this come up, like what Betsy's proposing here, and it's something that we want to recommend to the town, how do we go about that? Do we just reach out to Ian? Is it something we have to put into a formal proposal to send to the select board? I don't know any of that kind of process. Because I think you're very right here, Betsy. Like, even when I was doing the notes, I was trying to keep that actually in mind with like Bristol Equity Committee and making sure that anytime BEQC showed up, that also Bristol Equity Committee is either one in the parentheses or the other in parentheses, but that way they were both always showing up together.
Right, that would be really good. I think my guess is that the way to get it in would be to have someone go to a select board meeting and in the public comment time present it. Unless somebody has, Porter, you've done a lot with the town. What do you think?
You could do it either way. You could have a member of this committee go to the select board and just give a short report and have that be on the public record. You could submit a memo or have it be a memo or a motion that the equity committee, moves that the town department heads, select board member and all committees be conscientious about spelling out all acronyms for the public record and the community members and posterity for, inclusive and understanding, and then send that specifically to the select board and say, at our recent meeting, so it's more like in a memo form, and that can get included in the town. And we could just tell the select board member. Tabitha has a good note in the chat, is that, looking at a formal line of communication for recommendations for select board in the town offices. Yeah, so any of those would be ways that it could be done. But I agree, formal, as Tabitha's saying, so it's on the record rather than just an email to the select board member. So either going and presenting it verbally to the select board, because that gets captured in the public record, or submitting a memo, which would go to the town administrator, and she would put it in the notes to the select board. It might not then get reported at the meeting, so the public might not hear it, but it would be in the document that select board members get, so they will see it, and it would be entered on the web page with their notes for that meeting.
It might also be, if we find that we are wanting to make, if we envision we might make more than one recommendation within a 6-month period or something like that, like we capture all of those so that when the town report goes out and we can report in the town report these recommendations together, so they're all captured and might help for accountability.
I think that's a really good idea, because people who read it, like in the town report, they might think, oh, well, maybe my organization should be doing that too. I think we need to just start getting everybody thinking in terms of not talking to the in-group.
So what do you think, Krista? Do you imagine that being as like a Google Doc that we just continually add to as recommendations from the committee to the community, the select board, et cetera? And we could, you know, just start itemizing them and building that up, and then that gives the committee a way to report, as you suggested in our town report. You know, we can say here's a list of things that we're putting forward, but also, you know, a way to communicate to the select board.
Yeah, I think that that makes sense. And also maybe we still do things as they come up, or I don't really know. I'm curious to know. I haven't ever been on I don't know what the word is, but we don't really have much. We're sort of a ad hoc committee, or we're a formal committee, but I'm not sure what our power is or what
We're
the
an
select board
advisory, we're an
sees as our.
advisory committee, not a,
Okay. So I
so
think,
no power except to advise the select board, at least as far as like undertaking programs or spending money.
so I wonder, and this sort of gets maybe to what Tabitha, you were saying in the chat, was it might be even good to ask the select board, you know, we are coming up with some different ideas and thoughts and recommendations. You know, how do we communicate those to you? With the
whether-
hope that, you know, you'll be able to prioritize some of them and take action.
But doesn't it make sense to basically to do both, to give them these things one at a time so that they can actually think about it and discuss it, and then give them a list of, okay, here's what we sent you in the past 6 months, or 12 months or whatever, in time for the booklet. Then as they look at that, they'll say, oh, hey, we felt that we dropped the ball on this and that. It might be good in that way to have it go to them twice.
So do we have any action items then that we want to do now related to either what Betsy proposed, or our actual outreach to the select board?
Porter, I don't know what your sense is from, your work to help get this committee created, in terms of what the select board might want or expect. But I mean, one simple thing we could do just right now is, if I'm taking the notes, I mean, I could put, highlight the spot that says, recommendation for the select board or something like that. And that way, and maybe we just make a practice of sharing our notes with them. Or maybe they already get our minutes. I'm not sure what our protocol is or what they want or expect from us, but it seems like we could use some clarification there. And
Yeah.
also, like in the short term, we could
Yeah,
highlight.
I think in the short term, it's a good idea to highlight it both for your purposes, so you can track what you are saying you want to say to them, and also so that you can track the types of things that you're recommending for your own, consolidating that in reporting to the town itself. But I also think it's probably a, time to reach out to the select board and check in anyway. They said they wanted to know what the vision statement was. You have a working vision statement. They saw that. So the way that they are getting the information is that both our select board liaison, which is Ian, and the town administrator, Valerie, are on the mailing list. So they're getting all of the notes and the minutes and all of that. They haven't responded, but I think it's appropriate for a committee member at least, or a couple committee members, to go to a select board meeting sometime later this fall and say, we've met 3 or 4 times. Here's where we are. Here's what we're working on. We have a working vision statement. We have a couple of thoughts for town practice. We're looking for input on how you want to continue to hear from us. And here's what we envision as our next steps. So I think that maybe next month or even November is fine for that. I don't think there's a giant urgency, because I think from our last meeting, you guys were saying that you wanted to sort of start to sketch out what you want to do to be gathering more feedback from the community. And it might be nice to be able to tell the select board what your thoughts are in that regard. But you could go at any time, and I don't think that there's necessarily an emergency if you want to wait a little bit. I think it's fine either way. But all the information is available to any select board member if they want it. And we've given it directly to the liaison and the town administrator. So, you know, they're receiving information, but I think they do like to hear from committees directly.
All right. Is that clear enough, Krista? Because I know you're doing the notes, so, okay.
Well, I mean, I guess I just want to clarify. So those are some options. Does anybody feel like you want to, you know, be in touch with them sooner rather than later in person to a meeting, tell them where you are so far and get feedback on how they want to hear from you? Or do you feel like coasting a little bit and checking in with them after you have a little more under your belt? Either way is fine, but just to clarify what you guys are feeling right now. So Krista, Inika, Trevor, and Betsy.
I like the idea of waiting a little bit longer to get a little more of what we're putting together. But I don't want to put it off for too long. So if we're saying it, I would say within the next month to, you know, either October or November. That way we make sure we don't put it off too far.
I agree to wait a little bit, and also I feel like the presence of Tabitha in this committee and how we are going to shape our vision and everything is essential. I feel that before we start doing all that recommendations and communications, probably we should focus in this word of who we are and what we want, and then maybe when we show up with some communications, we are stronger than I feel that we are still like a little not sure how to move forward. And I feel that I'm really, really looking forward to the work with Tabitha here.
I agree. I think it makes sense to just keep moving ahead with our direction and then connect with the select board, especially if they're going to be getting our notes. Somebody is getting our notes and we're capturing them. What do you think, Betsy?
I think that it does need to be, I think it should be separate initially as either a comment or as a note specifically. Here's this note, because each of our recommendations, you know, they may assign it to a different person. So it might be easier for them to have them individually at some point, just for their processing of it.
Does that leave us with anything else on that topic right now? I do want to time check because it's almost 8 o'clock and I can't remember, are we 7 to 8 or 7 to 8:30?
8:30.
Okay. So we still got quite a bit on the agenda. So I'll kind of move us on a little bit further because I know also we've still got Tabitha on. I want to, I think we want to make sure we get to her time, and I'm sure that's getting pretty late for you. So we had a review of approval of minutes from the August meeting. And I know from our last meeting, we said we didn't actually have to take any kind of vote on it. It's just, you know, a kind of a general agreement. I didn't get any comments back from the notes that I sent out. I tried to, I know we're trying to keep to action items, but I tried to capture a little bit of our discussion, kind of at least the intent behind it. And then we had a lot of information that was shared at the last meeting. So there was a lot that was attached either as a link in the attached section or actually attached to it. So were there any changes or corrections to anything that I should look at, or do we accept those? No, with no objections, I'll say that's accepted. So on the rest of our agenda then, so kind of our standard items, we had old business, which was just any additional comments or changes to the working vision statement. And I don't have any yet. I think I'm still kind of getting used to the feel of that, what we have. I did include it in our front porch forum posting, and it is at the top of our agenda now, which I think are important places for people to start being able to see it and kind of get that out there. No, everyone's quiet. We'll move on then. Our new,
I feel that we need to continue be clear that the vision is still a work in progress. I feel that we still could do more, but again, I feel like that is the part that we could be achieved with the support of Tabitha and yeah, her expertise. So I think that we have a good start, but we could improve it later.
I would like to move that it be put on next month's old business.
Yeah, I think we wanted to try and keep it on the agenda for at least several months, if not longer, right? To keep reminding ourselves to look at it.
Right, and I think if I recall that you were having it just be as a working vision statement until you get more feedback from community members through the process we're hoping to eventually start talking about here. So maybe, we have in this agenda, it says, this is our working vision statement. We have it at the top of the thing, maybe in parentheses afterwards, it says working vision statement or draft vision statement or something like that, just so that we're acknowledging. So then, because I don't think you're necessarily going to be ready to talk about it next month or the month after, because we won't have done any of the focus group work or any of the outreach really until later this fall. So
how about first draft after the word, after vision statement?
Or just draft, right?
All right. So on our new business, we have information swap, which I think we already pretty much did, but is there any more that we need to bring up right now?
I'm just posting into the thing, the social justice discussion group this month at the library is a professor from the college who specializes in conflict transformation, talking about how to have conversations that are productive and healthy and respectful with people who you disagree with. There's about 24 people registered already, which is a great registration for an in-person session. So if you're interested in that and haven't yet signed up, the link is there.
It's tomorrow, right?
It is tomorrow.
At 7 o'clock, I believe.
Yep.
I remembered, I signed up. And I'll be there this time.
Okay.
All right. Then we had our learning and practice with Tabitha. Took a long time to get to you, Tabitha, but we definitely appreciate you and all those links that you're posting. And I've only read some of them so far, but I did find at like the top right of the chat, there's like three little dots. And if you click that, there's a save chat option that pops up there, which will save the chat to your computer. So if anyone hasn't done that, I keep saving it every few minutes as people add stuff into it also. So, yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
All right. And remember, you're still in the scaffolding phase of your committee. So your biggest goal right now is to kind of fortify who you are and how you do business with all of the other kind of invested parties, like your select board and your town offices and the community, and making sure that you set up the conduits for communication, so that when you go to do an initiative, right? So after you have established, like, generally, how we communicate and what our vision is, and then you start to put your initiatives out there, how each thing is going to happen. So if you hit a snag, it's already been established. So that for me, if I were you, I would work on one piece of that for every meeting over the next few months. That being said, let's get to one of your first kind of questions that you asked, which was, what do I do when people are like, why are you even talking about this? I put a doc in the chat for folks. You should be able to view it if you click on the doc. And what we're going to talk about for the next however many minutes it takes is some approaches that you can use to having conversations with people when they're like, what are you doing and why? And the first thing for me, whenever I'm in a situation like that, is to always like reflect on experiences where I've been the person asking why. And thinking about what does it mean to me and what do I need when I'm in that situation. So here are some of the common approaches that I use whenever I'm oh, hello? Did somebody say something?
Nope, you're
Okay.
good.
Okay. My internet connection is extremely unstable, so I could be talking for 20 minutes and you could be gone. So I put up at the top, which response or which interaction to the question when you ask, like, why are we doing this? Which of these tends to appeal more to you? Which one tends to be able to reach you the best? The first that I put up there is kind of the humanistic appeal, which is where you're talking about the values and beliefs that you uphold or that your community upholds and answering it from that perspective. We are a welcoming environment, and as a welcoming environment, we need to make sure we know who everybody is. We need to celebrate all that people are and what they bring to the table. And in order to do that, we have to recognize who they are, right? A storytelling approach. I left out the third. Some folks are really impacted when they hear personal stories about the topics of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. When they hear stories about what people have experienced in particular in your community, or on a state level here in Vermont, or nationally, right? Sometimes it's helping people to understand that way that really embeds it for them, and they'll be satisfied with that. For other folks, some people love data and statistics. They want to know, why are you even talking about it? If we only got 3 people in our community who are people of color, how do we even know we have gay people here, right? Those folks love, 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 and appreciate when they're given the data-driven information. And then there's our theory folks, right? And sometimes these folks respond very well to kind of the business side of things. Curtis Reed, who's been doing this work in Vermont since the 1970s, has used he's used a mix of them, but the theory-driven approach is what got a lot of us working at the state level, because he said, racism is bad for business. Bias is bad for business, because you're driving out the Association of Black Skiers. You're driving out XYZ people. And the fact, and he'll show, like, he'll mix it in with the data, which is, like, there's all of the trends show that in the next 10, 15 years, Black, brown, Latino people will be spending more and more dollars on vacation or, on tourism. And that really gets people's attention. The other thing people like is, some of the study results related to diverse and equitable workplaces that show that when you actually focus on this, it isn't divisive. It actually helps people to feel seen and more secure. So some folks really might like that approach. And then the last one, this is usually where I start. And again, you can start with one and add in another. But as an educator, I kind of gravitate toward the inquisitive one, which is where I ask the person to tell me more. What is it about this initiative that makes you wonder why we're doing it? And try to kind of target my response that way after I've given them time to kind of explore what their issue may be. I tend to validate their concerns, correct any misinformation, but you can't correct misinformation if you don't allow them a chance to speak about what's going on for them. And then I offer support, learning, and connection. Hey, if you want to know what we're about, Jim's at every single meeting. I'm sure he'd welcome another person there to sit with him and, kind of listen to what we're trying to do in our community. So those are kind of the 5 general approaches. As you're looking at them, does anybody have a sense of one that you, and again, the approach you take is the one you're also the most comfortable with being able to do, or the ones that you may be most comfortable doing. Some folks get tripped up over data, where others are like, storytelling is so outside of I forget things, it's not going to work for me. So the first thing for you to do as a committee right now is talk about which of these appeals most to you. Do you feel like you might be able to be confident or more comfortable in doing with folks who would ask you, why are you even doing this? We don't have a problem. And you can, well, now, does everybody have it up individually, or are we all watching Trevor's screen? Oh wait, I'm just going to go over here and I can see you. I don't have to have him move out. So that's so cool. Thoughts? Which approach kind of appeals to you as you're looking to them for your own ability to speak to the work and why you're doing this?
Well, I'll jump in and start. For me, it's both the storytelling and the inquisitive. Storytelling, when it probably goes to some of my own personal backgrounds, because I'm an English major and reading stories are something I love. And then inquisitive is something I've just been taught through different volunteering programs, that one of the best ways, or a very easy and good way to start conversations and connect with people, is to just start asking them what's important to them, and to then have them tell a story. So kind of combining those two is what I respond to a lot.
Yeah, there you go. And is that the one that you would feel most comfortable working with somebody else? Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Data and statistics and theory driven are things that I like to know, but I'm not good at repeating them back to people. Yeah. And then humanistic, I think, to me, those fit in if you just kind of naturally and in a relaxed way working with someone, in a conversation, that those tend to just kind of fall into it naturally.
Mhm.
Because we all have certain values and beliefs that are common values and beliefs, and then we find where there are differences, but the common ones are then what hold us together when we have the differences.
Mhm. Yeah. And Jim, feel free to get in on this too. I think that your perspective as a general community member is really important. Like, if you started going off on me about some stories, I would just shut down. Or if you told me data, my mind would go blank. Or I really like it when people tie it back to what's happening right here, right now. One of the things you might struggle with is if you don't have any data specific to the town of Bristol, if you haven't been able to get that yet, you may be relying on data related to Vermont to start.
At this point, I'm just an observer, okay?
Okay.
And that's where I'd like to stay at this point.
Okay.
If I have something to contribute, I will. I'm just listening to see where you're going and what you're doing. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that sometimes depend of who I am talking to, and I think that I have used all of them in different stages with different people. Yeah, like sometimes you need to appeal to the person's values and go to their heart and what do they feel. Or the other times, my own story or storytelling is what the people is convinced. Data is important to me. I feel like sometimes when people are very receptive, showing them data, they're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Same as theory, I think that could be the more complex one to use with some people, but is the one that has given me a lot of knowledge. And the other one, yeah, I think that the last one is a little bit like I I think that just requires deeper conversations and relationships to convince sometimes. And sometimes I just withdraw and like, okay, bye.
Yeah. It may depend on your energy level, right? Your knowledge of the person. Yep. Good. Betsy or Krista, any thoughts?
Well, I lean toward the first and second one. But what it's bringing up for me is whether we might sometime have some kind of an event or a roundtable or something that goes on the local TV station where each of us speaks to one of these. I mean, so that whoever's watching it will see that, you know, we're not all coming at it from the same place, we're all different, but also that each of these learning methods will be available.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I had that same thought. I definitely tend more toward like the values driven or inquisitive. I love to ask folks, you know, lots of questions to understand, but I have a hard time keeping data in my brain. So, but I was thinking it would be great if we had a way to convey, or, you know, all, so that folks feel like they can get information in the ways that make sense for them. So we had some data about either Vermont or Bristol, and we had some, you know, some different approaches for every situation, depending on the person's preferred way of getting info.
Okay. So given that, and Betsy, yeah, Betsy, you said what your thoughts were. So there are a couple of ways that we can do this, and recognizing that you've only got 16 minutes left. So we can start to go through it right now, or you can kind of self-assign into one area or another. And then the next time we come back together, we can review what you came up with for like literally just a quick narrative. It doesn't have to be a whole 15-page thesis, but just, you know, a few quick remarks that you might say, or a few questions if you're going the inquisitive route that you may ask as committee members. So we can either start to go through that together, or you can choose to do that as homework. So we can go to the next item. It's your choice.
I think it would be nice to reflect on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say I vote for homework. But that's, I don't like getting put on the spot necessarily either. I was wondering if we maybe think about using this to replace our icebreaker for the next meeting. Instead of doing an icebreaker, what if we do this as that?
Okay.
The only thing it'll put Darla and Brian and, you know, on the spot if they join next in the next meeting, but they can watch us go first and then they can follow after if they want to.
Well, and
Yeah.
also, this document will be included at the bottom of the notes. So they'll have that, and it can say, just as you did last time, we were given the homework assignment to talk about some of the ways that we might want to reach out or places. So I think that makes sense, as long as Krista, you don't mind giving up your icebreaker. I don't know if you had a hot idea you were just dying to launch there. So I think that could certainly work. And you know, to keep to the icebreaker short, 2 minutes, if people are asked to focus on Tabitha's point of like, pick, you know, 3 different things, and it could be 3 inquisitive questions, or 1 point of data, 1 anecdote or story, 1 humanistic value. So, you know, so each person can pick 3 things to share in their 2 minutes of how they might respond to a friend or neighbor or community member who was like, what's with this equity committee? Why are you doing this?
I like that.
And I am putting together some of the slides that we used. for here. You are Bristol Equity Committee. Data. So I'm going to give you a set of slides that I used when I think it was our first meeting, Porter, where I talked about the why this is important and the local statistics and data across Vermont that show some of the disparities that we see. So let me
While you're
let
doing
me
that,
do
if it's
this.
okay to comment, one thing, so before moving here, one of the things that I used to do as a volunteer was as a volunteer docent at a science museum, where we're basically doing a lot of what you just put there, but in different ways. You know, we're trying to tell stories to engage people, ask them questions to get them engaged. But that also did include a lot of the facts and inquisitive kind of parts. And so I did encounter a lot of people that fell into different categories as what they were comfortable.
Yeah.
I think these are going to be really important when we're doing our focus groups, but I think it's also very easy that as a group, once we get to that point of focus groups, that we can come up with things like flashcards or something, so that if you're not good with the data, you've got flashcards with that in it, and there's nothing wrong with pulling that out. That way you can be accurate. If you're not good with the storytelling, that there's a story on a flashcard, or however we're doing the group, but some way that you can access that. So I love hearing that we've all got so many different ways that we can do this. Got different experts on the group.
Yeah. And people are going to want to hear different things. So I just shared a second document with you. Are you able to open that? It's a Google slide. Literally, I just copied this, the stat slides. And this is, you can see in the notes section. I think it'll show you the notes section where you can see the source if it's not written into the slide itself. So if you do the data part, that one will be really helpful. So do you want to divvy them up and work with somebody between now and the next meeting? Or do you want to just be like, I want to work on this one? Because if two of you work on it separately and you come together, then you have two answers. So, but you also want to make sure you hit them all. Any preference on how you want to do that?
It's not sounding like it due to the lack of responses.
Oh,
I think I'd rather do individually, just because of time commitments that I know in the next month that I have. But that's me personally.
I'm feeling that way too, Trevor. Although I would love to spend more time with you all.
I am not that clear about the second step. Is it that we are supposed to come up with a canned speech that we all are going to be giving the same talk to everybody?
No, you are going to choose one of those approaches to
Right.
answering the question, why do we do this?
Right.
You are going to say for you how you would do it. And then when you come back together, you're going to share what you said. Now, is it canned? I don't know.
No, I
Yeah.
thought you were saying that then, we need to put it all together. I thought there was at some point that you were trying to synthesize all of it. And
It
that,
could be helpful. Yeah, it might be helpful for you to have that somewhere so that, like if you need that as a resource, you have it as a resource. But what I find is that once people have practiced doing it, it just becomes part of what you do. But if you do come across somebody who's like, that approach doesn't really hit it for me, and they're like, I want to, I want to hear stories of actual Vermonters, you can be like, hold on a sec, I've got some stories for you. Right, here's some resources so that you can understand what we're talking about. You know what I mean? So you have that library just in case you need to rely on it.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do storytelling.
Perfect. And it's okay if you have more than one person doing one thing, you just have 5 things to make sure somebody covers each one. So Chris is on storytelling. Does anybody want to take the humanistic values approach? That's the one where you might talk about your declaration of inclusion.
Yeah, I would certainly be comfortable with that. And I'm
Okay.
only allowed to do one. I'd like to do this.
No, you can do as many as you want.
Okay, all right, just thank you.
Yeah. Is there another one that you saw that you were like, oh, I'm definitely like interested in this one as well?
Well, I want humanistic and storytelling.
Well, then you have
Great.
humanistic and
Go
storytelling.
for it, Betsy.
Yeah,
And Trevor, I believe that you also had kind of a 2 or 3 pronged approach.
Yeah, I did. So, to me, it's like storytelling and inquisitive, but I have a feeling that I didn't hear anyone that was really into the data and theory driven. So I'm wondering if I just take those as a challenge for myself.
Give it a shot.
I like the data, but what I am seeing is with those slides that you share, can we get information about, oh my dear, wait a minute. Wait, I have my screen. Can we get information about the theory-driven and inquisitive approaches? Because I see a lot of
Mhm.
data, but if I want to do theory, how it's not based on the slides, should be like something more.
Yeah, the slides would not be for the theory one. The theory one would be some of the studies out there related to the workforce or to communities and diversity and the benefits of diverse community and paying attention to identity.
Okay.
I could do that one because in my work, since I teach the neuroscience of decision making, there's a lot of research on diversity and innovation, creativity, and performance in the workplace.
Okay.
So I can talk about the neuroscience of performance and why there's value in that.
Okay. And I just put another resource in the chat from the Office of Racial Equity. It's their 5-year look back, and they look at some of the stats and the data across Vermont and the trends. That might be a good place to get because they do use some storytelling techniques in there, and they use the data, and they're the ones that are trying to create the data or mine the data for the state. So that might be another resource that somebody would find helpful in this process. And then, okay, so Porter's taking the data one. Okay. Any other resources that you would find useful as you go about this? Another really great resource, if any of you have ever read The Sum of Us
Mm,
by Heather McGee, that's a
mhm,
great one if you're going to be doing the theory.
mm.
If anybody wants to borrow that, I have it.
I just don't know if there's anybody that wants to read a whole book between now and the next meeting.
I have it
Audiobook?
highlighted with pages marked.
Me too.
That's the best kind of
Dorky.
book.
Yeah.
It's the best kind of book.
So is that
Mhm.
the sum of us, what racism costs everyone and how something
Yeah.
the title goes off? Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
And I'm
Googled it really
like,
quick so I could remember to look for it.
yeah. Another resource might be the Kicked Out report by Jay Diaz of the ACLU, who looks at disparities in Vermont's education system for students with disabilities and students of color.
The kicked out
So
report by who, Tabitha?
Jay Diaz, I'll put it in the chat for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Kicked Out.
I think that I will do a combination between data and theory.
Okay. And it doesn't take much to, if anybody's doing the storytelling, all of our papers, all of our newspapers and, news sources have reported on some kind of stories across our state related to identity-based issues, like disability rights in schools has been a big one. As you know, in Central Vermont, there was a lot happening related to trans youth and their experiences in schools. So,
Mhm.
I could also talk about that a little bit. I have statistics and everything. Is that
Beautiful.
everything is so like you cannot separate
Connected.
like a
That's
storytelling
right.
without telling it's like
Mhm.
yeah, I think that the numbers are something that for me is a proof. Like it's not me
That's right.
me talking from my storytelling is this is true. That's happening.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you know what? Don't feel like you have to be a purist in any one of these areas. The point is to start from a perspective that's true, right? That you're not just giving some canned response. Like if you watch people argue on social media, it's like, for me, it's like Jerry Springer. But if you watch, you see people kind of copying and pasting from whatever their side is into arguments or conversation. And I'm like, whatever happened to actually engaging with each other? Right. So the point of this exercise is to come up with things that are true that also speak to your way of authentically relating to folks. And with the inquisitive one, you can also just, if you come up with some questions as you're thinking, just go ahead and pop them in there. Right? Some questions that you may ask, like, tell me more. I want to understand, are you upset? Are you worried for your family? What this may mean? Right? Where does the concern really come from for you? There's all kinds of things that you may ask there. How did you find out about it? Or where did you get that information from? Those are some of the questions that I would typically ask in the inquisitive approach.
So we
Okay.
made the questions.
You may what?
We made the questions.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions?
I just had a question.
Please.
Well, it's more about just sort of incorporating this into our next meeting agenda. So go ahead if you wanted to say anything else about the specific.
That was it.
Okay.
That was, I was going to say, it's going to be your opener, right? Or something.
Yes, exactly. So that was my thinking was, I lost track of our agenda for tonight, but it sounds like it might make sense if everyone agrees that if we're starting with that as our opener, then we just move right into whatever Tabitha has planned for us, or I'm not really sure, but maybe whatever those next steps are and however much time you think that might take, maybe we just front load that.
That would be great, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
When is your next meeting?
October 23rd.
Okay, and at 7 p.m.
And please
Okay.
someone check my date to make sure I got the right date on there.
Yeah, I think you're
Okay.
right. I think that's right.
And I think that you're right, because I think, we didn't get to do the part where we're starting to build out the next.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Like I said, we're going to set our dates aggressively and just recognize that things are going to come up.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the next part on our agenda was the community core values project, sharing
Yep.
ideas and drafting our next steps. And we're, right at the end of our time. But I don't know about others, but I feel like what we were just talking about is going to help me formulate a little bit more about that and be able to be a little better prepared next meeting for that.
So you'll come with your opener, which is how you would address the question, why are you doing this? And then if you can, each person can come up with maybe 2 to 3, if you want to do more, great, populations or groups that you want to make sure that you engage in this next step. We'll be well on our way.
Wonderful.
And then Tabitha, you'll be working with us on that, and will we also have a learning component next time? Because we had talked about that each time. So just like a little bit of deeper education and background as well as that. Yeah, so hopefully we can.
So how much time would you think we should make sure to set aside next time?
Yeah, I was about to ask that too.
I would do 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. That sounds good.
Okay. And then the learning, do you want it to be the beginnings of how bias becomes business, or how to interrupt harm.
What were those again?
How bias becomes business, the beginning parts of that, or interrupting harm.
What do you suggest based on where we're at as a committee?
I gave you only those two options because those are two reasonable places for both of you to start, given the time that you have.
Can you explain what you mean by how bias becomes business?
Sure. Some folks still struggle or can't make the connection between individual prejudice and bias and systemic and structural responses to bias. So this is the beginning of helping people to understand what that means and how we get from one to the other.
I think that for me, that's the first step, because we cannot interrupt harm if we don't understand how the bias is putting us in certain places.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Like I said, there's always a benefit and there's always going to be a drawback to any approach you take. So we'll be good either way.
No, I'm going to
I'm
agree.
good with that.
Mhm.
Betsy, you
All
good
right,
if we
so
start with that?
What?
Are you good if we start with
How bias becomes
how bias?
business.
Thank you.
Sorry, my puppy's being a jerk right now.
It's not something I can speak to, but I don't care where it is in the agenda if that's what you're asking.
Perfect.
All right. Well,
All right.
thanks for having me once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys,
Sounds like we have a plan for our next meeting then.
I think so.
Awesome.
Krista, you got all those links so you can include them at the bottom of the notes like Trevor did?
Yeah,
You just
I
paste them
think I
in.
do. Yeah, I think I've
Perfect.
got them.
Okay. If you didn't, I also saved the chat just a moment ago too. So if you missed any, just let me know.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
I think that brings us to adjournment. So thank you.
All right.
Are we deciding the note taker and the agenda master for next time? I think that we do always in advance, or we do it on this.
I volunteered to be the note taker tonight, which I think means that I'm going to do the agenda
Okay.
or do help facilitate the meeting next time.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that I don't want to take notes or lead that one, because this is a public space and document, and I feel very overwhelmed. For me, English is my second language, and it's something that is so delicate. I prefer to have a little bit of a space, maybe later, but not now.
And also, Inika, if you ever want to or are comfortable leading the meeting, but you'd like someone else to do the note taking, we can also talk about that too. But yeah.
Yeah, for the moment, I feel that I just not yet. Thank you.
I am in the same category for different reasons. I am very seriously dyslexic, and I cannot take notes.
Okay.
We can also look into the AI note taking at some point too, if that's helpful.
Yeah, and I think that the first time it did take some notes, which seemed to be more or less accurate. The second time, because the owl wasn't working, somehow that also impacted the audio, and I think we didn't get AI notes. This
Gotcha.
time, I have no idea if AI
I-
is taking notes or not.
I think it is. It's blinking in the upper right next to the recording. And if
Oh,
you click
okay.
on it, it actually asks you if you want to turn it off. And so
Oh.
I've left it on.
Oh, okay.
I think it was automated, just like
Okay.
the recording was. Yeah.
Okay, so
Um,
hopefully that worked this time. And that is a good augment to our simple capturing of notes.
Mhm.
So good. So next time, you know, you can choose from the remaining committee members and carry on.
Thank you.
Before we go, one last thing too, because it came up through email with you, Porter, with the agenda that has to be sent out. The town people they posted in the town offices, I think you said, but there's a couple places we need to be posting it, and I didn't get to that just because I'd forgotten that from Brian's emails in the past, and then when you reminded me on Sunday, I just didn't have time. So I was just wondering, I know you had created some items for the note taker. If you wouldn't mind updating those to include that,
Okay.
and then maybe just share it out to everybody so that we have it all. Maybe we can put it in an online repository somewhere or something too, just to make it easier. I don't know what's easiest for everybody, but yeah.
I would love to have things not in a repository. I mean, you can have them there, but I need to have a different one that I can print out. I need hard copy.
But you can print it out. Are you not able to print it out
Bye,
from
Jen.
the website, Betsy?
I don't think so. There's a whole lot I can't do. You wouldn't imagine how much I can't do.
Okay.
I think Jim's got a question or comment.
No, just comment for you. Under the open meetings law, you're required within 5 days to post your results of your meeting with the town clerk.
That seems to be, that seems to not be the hard part for us. The hard part for us seems to be getting the agenda where it needs to be. We haven't done as good a job on that, but I think we've had a pretty good time getting the notes to the town office. I don't know if they always make it onto the website in a timely manner, but
I think as long as you guys put it in, and as far as your agenda, I don't recall anybody having to post an agenda, just that I knew you were required 48 hours prior to a meeting to post that you were having a meeting.
Hmm,
I
Okay.
might check with
Interesting.
Diana because the law has changed recently, but I wouldn't get too concerned over that. As long as you have a place to put your notes, which would be the town clerk.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Jean,
Okay.
that applies for any group, like it is for the official group or because we are a group of volunteers. Like, do we have to do that as a group of volunteers?
I think
Okay,
we
thank you
still
for
do
that.
have to do it. It's a slightly lesser standard since we're not a decision-making body, since we're an advisory body, but we still need to make that available. But you know what I'm noticing? Like, I'm looking at the website and I know that we sent our notes from the July meeting. And I don't see them. Although I guess maybe all we had was July was agenda. But then, oh, I see, then the notes are in the August agenda. But then the August notes didn't show up in the September agenda, and I don't know why, because we gave it to them. So we might have to check with that. But yeah, we'll get it there.
Okay.
So my instructions though, for what to do next, live on a document that
That
we
we
have.
asked, well, that we thought they were gonna post on here and they didn't, back in July. So I will email those to the whole committee.
Okay, great.
you.
And that way I'll know what to do
Yeah.
with these notes and then with the agenda. Thank you, Porter. All right,
And you've got me and Brian who did it in a couple,
great.
now too. So if you have questions, we
you.
can tell you from
Yeah,
our
and Darla.
experience too. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. So I think that brings us to final adjournment. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening and see some of you maybe tomorrow at the social justice meeting.
Great.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, guys. Bye.